All right, let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles now, who we had talked about, at the Arizona Cardinals. So, where do you think the buzz is on Jalen Hurts? What are you getting? What vibes are you getting from Jalen Hurts' first start here?
Oh, I think it's high. I think people were already pretty enamored with Jalen Hurts before he ever saw the field, and I think the way him, making some big plays with his legs, not taking a sack, there's a few things that are there to like, and of course winning the game unexpectedly, all feed into that narrative. So yeah, I think there was already a lot of buzz surrounding Jalen Hurts anyway, and I think it only went up after that game.
So another one that we talked about on the daily, Jalen Hurts, his first performance and what it means. The PFF passing grade was low. I mean, he had a 40 passing grade. It was the second lowest grade from any Eagles quarterback this season, of course, behind Carson Wentz, who had started every other game.
Who was the fifth best grade in the NFC East that week.
Right. So the buzz is probably a little bit too high. The point I wanted to get to was that Vegas, so we're haters because of this generally, right? For being the wet blanket of reason after one, win. Vegas has Arizona by 6.5.
Yeah.
So the narrative is that
haters.
What's that?
Haters.
They're haters as well.
Yeah.
Vegas, not the Raiders, the
bookmakers.
The bookmakers. So they're not buying in either. The narrative is that, well, the Eagles look different and everybody played better and Miles Sanders is made better. Everything was better. And there are parts of that we'll talk about. But bottom line is, people still see the Cardinals as a better team no matter who the quarterback is, and 6.5 is a pretty big line.
Particularly when Arizona hasn't been playing that well.
Right.
Like, if this was earlier Arizona when they were coming off a couple of their peaks this season, you would be like, okay, that makes some sense. This is Arizona who have shown some vulnerabilities over the last few weeks, and Vegas is still liking them almost to the tune of an entire touchdown against the Jalen Hurts led Eagles. And I think it makes some sense. Look, I don't want to dump on Jalen Hurts and say the guy has no shot. There's no future there. There's no possibility. But he didn't throw the ball that well in his first start. And when you look at the number of things they did schematically to kind of, on one hand, take advantage of his superior running ability to Carson Wentz. On another hand, kind of not play real offense, like all these kind of weird trick plays with inverted veer, all the kind of stuff you can only do with a special athlete at quarterback, but you can't make a whole offense out of. And typically you can't do them for any kind of long period of time because they're like shock plays. They're surprise plays to a defense. It's like, oh crap, we weren't expecting this to come out of the woodwork, but it's like it's a play that's been around since the 1930s. If you show it to them a few times, they know what they're doing, right? So yeah, week one of the Jalen Hurts offense was designed well, it functioned, and he did a good job of executing it. But how long does that last? What kind of grace period do you get with that before defenses just clamp down on it?
Well, my broken record statement all year. That is, first off, I think building an offense around Hurts' skill set, which is more of a good thing than a bad thing. But the floor of the offense, the same thing I've said about Kyler Murray, Taysom Hill, the floor of the Eagles' offense is higher because, like last week, when Hurts didn't throw the ball well, he did rush for over 100 yards. We had the Miles Sanders 82-yard touchdown run where if you look at the linebacker, just peeking into the backfield, just enough that gets Sanders into the secondary, makes one guy miss, he's off for 82 yards. That Hurts does bring that to the table. And I'm not trying to hate on him either. I'm more just trying to say, don't look at one game and make declarations for the future. I would say this about anybody, particularly when, and don't tell me that he was great when he, was a good runner and wasn't a good passer. So I think he's got a chance to improve. I think there's a world where Hurts is going to play way better from a grading standpoint, and the stats aren't going to show it, and we're going to be talking about the other end of it. But I think the Eagles are tighter than a 6.5 point underdog here. I think the Hurts factor does tighten up the matchup here. My question is this Eagles offensive line that's been beat up and depleted. And they got the great Hassan Reddick on the other side after his 5-sack game last week.
They're also missing a lot of guys in the secondary, which I think might be playing into that line. Philadelphia's secondary is pretty beat up right now. Arizona has passing weapons. They should be able to have this high-octane, endless scoring offense. The problem is we just haven't seen it happen that much this season. Kyler Murray hasn't, taken that huge step forward as that type of quarterback. His biggest steps forward have been as a runner, and that's evaporated since he picked up the shoulder injury. So
got back to it a little bit last week.
Yeah, but I guess the bottom line is certainly the line, Vegas expects this to be Arizona's passing attack taking advantage of Philadelphia's lack of players in the back end. And, you know, I could see that happening, certainly.
I could absolutely see that. I think, you know, Arizona's, you know, they lost a little luster the last few weeks, but they're still very much in the thick of it. I think from an off-season discussion standpoint, the Eagles are going to be fascinating, man, because I don't think they've made a ton of bad moves. We'll talk about them later on the show, by the way. Benjamin Solak from, you know, he's an Eagles guy, right? And he's with the Draft Network, and he knows the Eagles inside and out. So we're going to talk more Eagles later in the show with him. But I don't know that they've made a ton of bad moves. He might disagree. But I think that's the challenge with team building sometimes is you do a lot of things that are right on paper and they just don't work. Like Darius Slay was the right move on paper, and that hasn't worked out for the Eagles, plus the million injuries that they've had.
We're months away from like crowning Howie Roseman as like the best GM in NFL history, and then his quarterback falls apart, and suddenly, well, along with everything else, along with the offensive line, the secondary, like everything in Philadelphia fell to pieces, and now it's like, well, this is the worst contract ever. This is how could a guy sign this?
I'm looking forward to discussing that a little bit later on. So here's my take. 6.5 seems rich. I'm taking Philly to cover. I like Arizona to win, and we'll have a little bit more Eagles talk going on. Who do you think? Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I think I could buy that. I mean, what's interesting is the entire NFC East has suddenly become interesting, right? They're all live in these games. Like Philadelphia, Arizona a couple of weeks ago, you're like, no shot, Arizona, easy win, forget about it, next game. Now it's like, all right, I can see a way that Jalen Hurts, this offense still functions. They don't make as many mistakes. Arizona hasn't been firing the way we know they can. They could snatch this. Similarly, you know, the other games in there, Washington, suddenly the entire NFC East is actually viable again.
You're so sad.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that that's true.
Your hopes and dreams just destroyed of NFC East just being horrible going into the playoffs.